Well, good morning, everyone. My name is Mighty Stream. Today is October the 28th. I hope you're having a beautiful day. I am going to do your Just for Today in a meditation for October 28th. If you need to reach me, do so at recoveryofhope21@gmail.com. Let's go ahead and get into the meditation. I'm brought to you by Hope Through Navigation, and this is our H.O.O.D Recovery Services. H.O.O.D is an acronym H-O.O.D that stands for Hope Offered on Demand. Okay, so let's talk about attitudes. We can also use the steps to improve our attitudes. Basic text, page 55. Ever have a day when everything seems to be working against you? Do you go through periods when you are so busy taking people's inventories you can barely stand yourself? What about when you find yourself snapping at your coworker or loved one for no reason? When we find ourselves in this bleak frame of mind, we need to take action. At any point in the day, we can set aside a few moments and take a spot inventory. We examine how we are reacting to outside situations and other people. When we do, we may find that we are suffering from a plain old bad attitude. A negative outlook can hurt our relationship with our higher power and the people in our lives. When we are honest with ourselves, we frequently find that the problem lies with us and our attitude. We have no control over the challenges life gives us. What we can control is how we react to those challenges. At any point in time, we can change our attitude. The only thing that really changes in Narcotics Anonymous is us. The 12 steps gives us the tools to move out of the problem and into the solution. Just for today, throughout the day, I will check my attitude. I will apply the steps to improve it. Let's take a moment of silence followed by the we version of the Serenity Prayer. Moment of silence now, please. God, grant us the serenity to accept the things we cannot change, the courage to change the things that we can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Just for today, please and thank you. Wow. What a beautiful meditation. We can also use the steps to improve our attitudes. Okay, so I have to admit, this is not my first taping. And the first one was just so beautiful, but I had an interruption at the end, and I really felt that it was too long of a pause, and I needed to redo the taping. But what I was talking about was that it's pretty common for us to live clean, right? I mean, talk about spirituality. But when it comes to actually applying spirituality to our daily lives, we drop the ball. Myself, I drop the ball quite frequently. So I'm assuming that we all drop the ball frequently in our daily affairs because we're human. And we can't shut down our emotions. We can't shut down our feelings. It'd be great if we could, but far a part of being a human being, a part of being a human being is that we're going to we're going to have this emotional, mental reaction, and sometimes physical, right? Reaction to everything that we encounter throughout the day. But everything that I'm feeling does not need to be verbalized. Every thought that I'm having does not need to be expressed. We need to run the emotions that we're having through our spiritual sifting right? Our spiritual sifter. It's just like in the old days, we used to have a sifter that was metal and it had a handle that you could squeeze, and you could take your flour and put it in it and sift your flour, get the lumps out and make it more thin, make it more consistent, right? So that when you go to make your batter, it's more smooth and you don't have to worry about lumps, right? Same thing spiritually. We have a spiritual sifter. Some of us would call it Narcotics Anonymous. I just call it the spiritual principles of the 12 steps and traditions. We have a system that works. And everything that we encounter throughout the day, it could be bumpy, it could be unkind, it could be loving, it could be whatever whatever it is in the moment that we're feeling or going through. We drop it into the spiritual sifter and we squeeze spiritual principles into it so that when it comes out in a way that is palatable, that is spiritual, that is reflective of who we really are. We pretty much do that without having to think about it. But there are certain situations, certain people that will trigger us. And a lot of times they're the people that are closer to us. They're in a position to speak and to do things that we wouldn't let anyone else speak and do. And so sometimes what happens is we have a resentment, unforgiveness, a bad attitude about the situation, and we refuse. And I say refuse, but sometimes it's not that intentional. Sometimes we just respond without thinking. I've done that so many times. I've had to do a 10th step so many times. There was one situation that I remember, lady, she was going through quite a bit. She has been for, a few years now. And when I remember, it seemed like she had a bad attitude. And I really, in that moment, was not trying to engage her because I had heard some of the comments that she had already made to other people at this event that we were at. And so I knew that she was having a bad day. But the problem is that nobody checks her, right? Nobody says, that was not nice. Why are you even talking like that? Like, you're at a whole event clowning. Why are you talking to people? No one. And for whatever reason, she turned her attention towards me and made a rude comment. And in that moment, my spiritual sifter was not there. And I responded, right? And I responded so quick. But after the words were out of my mouth, and I'm telling you, they probably took less than 5 seconds to say. If I say, have a beautiful day on purpose, that's about how long it took to say what I said. And because of her personal circumstances, that old cliche that I used meant something different for her. Anyone else that was old enough would remember the cliche, but for her circumstance, it was inappropriate. And do you know, I excused myself, and within an hour, I was apologizing. To this day, the apology has never been acknowledged. And so, in that 5 seconds of unthoughtfulness, in that 5 seconds of not applying spiritual principles, not sifting my emotions through my spiritual sifter, a whole relationship has been injured. Maybe not beyond repair, but I don't have the energy to try to figure it out, right? Because when I do my 10th step, I let it go at that point. I change my behavior. When I do my 10th step, I'm acknowledging that that was not okay, but their response to that is up to them. And that's the same thing with you. You have a responsibility for your recovery. And so when you have a bad attitude or you respond in a way that you know is not spiritual, that has caused injury, like it said in here, we just snapping, we going off on coworkers, taking people's inventories, we having a bad attitude basically, and refusing to do a spot inventory, refusing to check our attitude, and causing injury, though, leaving dead bodies all the way, leaving a trail of dead bodies behind us, which are hurt feelings, right? I'm speaking figuratively, but you do understand what I'm trying to say. So when do we ever spot check ourselves? Because we can't get away from feelings and emotions. But I remember this lady, she coined the term, started a whole business on just this term that we've used for years, but she was able to help people understand that they need to flip the script in any situation that they're in. We have this tendency to have patterns and ways of thinking that have become normal for us. These little grooves in our brains, these little messages within our brains that are firing off emotions and feelings and microfacial reactions. But we can flip the script at any point in time and teach ourselves how to respond differently with spirituality. We need to do more spot checks, more spot inventories. We need to be more intentional about applying spiritual principles and not assuming that everyone is going to just give us a pass. She doesn't have the same, this lady doesn't have the same system for spirituality as I do, right? Mine is in A. She's not in recovery. What she know about spiritual principles are just universal. Love your children, take care of your family, be kind to people, don't steal. Right? These are universal spiritual principles but for addicts, we need help in making sure that we apply them in all our affairs because we're already coming into the game with a deficit called the disease of addiction. And you will have people tell you that it's more mental than anything. Our disease of addiction lies between our two ears. It's the way that we think. That's why we say our best thinking got us here. But make no mistake, we can retrain ourselves to be able to respond differently. Now, I'm paying the price for a lost friendship, relationship, right? As a consequence of 5 seconds of foolishness. But maybe this isn't your story. Maybe you can't really, maybe you actually are applying spiritual principles in all your affairs and you're not offending people and hurting people and stepping on their toes or speaking the wrong way or sighing when they're in the middle of talking to you. So now they understand that you're bored with them, exhausted with them. Maybe you don't have that problem, but I know I do. I know when I need to today. I know when I need to just bite my tongue. Don't even come back because my comebacks, they're very, very unspiritual. My comebacks are quick, they're witty, they're meant to be somewhat humorous, but not that humorous. Right? I'm not using humor to make a point that I know that I can verbally say, but they are very sarcastic. And I know that about myself. So, but maybe that's not you. But what I will say that is 9 times out of 10 it is. And this meditation should rock your world today. This meditation about attitudes and bad attitudes and doing spot inventory should check you from the head down to the toe. It should be something, a tool that you put in your tool belt. This is one of those meditations that I believe is a 5-star. This is something that you should be able to go back to and say, come on now. You know you didn't have to respond that way. What should you have said? Because many times what we do, we have these internal conversations about what we're going to say, what we're going to do, what if they ever do this again. We have all this bad, stinking thinking type thoughts that we actually live out before we even get into the situation. Premeditated bad attitudes. Premeditated bad attitudes, because we know how people are and how they respond, and we say yes when we mean no. We already know that they're on our nerves. And then instead of explaining to them, whew, when you go into the kitchen and you leave a plate with some ketchup on it and you could have just rinsed that off, that irritates me, and I need you to stop and change that behavior. I'm not your plate rinser, right? We can have those conversations with individuals in a loving and kind manner. We can sift those situations through our spiritual sifter and change the dynamics. We we have the best, we really got the best life that we've ever lived. We have beautiful spiritual principles to apply. And today I want you to do that. I want you to check your bad attitude, spiritually check your bad attitude, make a commitment to change it just for today. I want for you to be able to have a beautiful day. You don't need to go tell your coworker off. You don't need to respond that way. You might need to communicate the truth about how you're feeling and do it on a day when you're actually feeling really good on side and can apply it with the spiritual sifter of love. I hope that you have a beautiful day. I've enjoyed talking to you. My name is MightyStream, and I will be talking to you tomorrow.